And he hated the way it was presented, sanitized, he'd say, by the world's media. And it is. If you saw what I saw in wars, which you don't, because television cuts out the bloodiest scenes, oh no, we can't see the horror, but we should. We should see the pornography of death. Because if you saw what I saw, dogs tearing corpses to pieces and women and children bombed in the desert, you would never support war again. Never, ever. So he died at 74. One of the best journalists ever in the history of journalism. Certainly one of the best war correspondents of all time. Told the truth. He was controversial because he told the truth about war. He wasn't controversial because he was crazy. He wasn't controversial because he got stuff wrong. He wasn't controversial because he had crazy ideas. He was controversial because he told the truth about war, something you're not allowed to do. So, R.I.P. Robert Fisk. He made our reporting on Syria a lot easier. He did the real hard work. Tip of the hat. The world's a worse place off without him. Really sad. So young. 74. That's very young. My dad's 91. Give you an example. Okay. Any more questions? So that's it. So it looks like I was going to do a rant, but it looks like it's tightening up. It looks like we won't know really for sure who's going to win. That's how shitty Joe Biden is. You see 70% of the people want to help Medicare. We're not going to do that thing.
Okay, no problem.
We'll do it in the morning.
Great.
Okay, so that's it. That's it.
All right, that's it. Okay, then I'm just going to wrap it up.
Just going to wrap it up.
And then people can tune in and see you on something else later?
So I'm going over to Useful Idiots.
Katie Halbert.
I'm supposed to go on the Useful Idiots podcast.
All right, that sounds fun.
Okay.
All right.
And
are you done shaking drinks?
Graham Elwood invited me to do his podcast right now.
That's great.
But I'm sorry, Graham. I would love to. If you would have asked me earlier today, I would have scheduled it, but you didn't. You waited till right now.
Can I beg you for a little bit more?
Make another drink?
Is that okay?
Sure. So let's say goodbye.
Well, I'm going to keep reading the chats.
Oh, there are chats.
Yeah. So I'm going to read for probably maybe 5
You know
more
what?
minutes.
Katie never sent me the thing.
All right. So I'm going to keep reading. All right, everybody. Couch, I just love you all. That's all I want to say. I love your energy. Here we are in the midst of some sort of crazy turning point. No matter which way this goes.
Cámbiate a Spectrum Mobile con llamadas y textos ilimitados a México
y Puerto Rico.
Soul of the nation, which is just this like amorphous, it is democratic culture war. It's like, I said this on the show, the Trump people, it's make America great again. It's like go back to this mythical era of the 50s. The Biden people, their version of that is like, let's go back to 2012. It's the same sort of nostalgic, let's just snap everything back into place. And they really didn't put forward front and center a policy vision. They put forward their own version of the culture war, and a referent Donald Trump is bad. And they may win it in a squeaker, okay? But I don't think anyone feels super comfortable right now. And to me, that is a thorough indictment of the Biden campaign's entire approach. This thing should not be close.
Look, I think one of the biggest things we're dealing with right now, Republicans have been good at talking to Republicans and picking off some independents and some kind of Reagan Democrats, Rockefeller Republican style moderates. Democrats haven't been good at doing that. While we've expanded the tent, we haven't been able to actually pick off the kind of Republicans that are now Trump people. And so we're running into this wall over and over again where we're bringing in new voters, but we're failing to close that gap. And I think that's what we're seeing tonight. We ran up the score in early voting, but on election day, Republicans came home. And that's problematic, not just for Democrats, but for Republicans as a whole, because I don't know how you legislate and govern with Donald Trump being the figurehead for the party.
Jen, let me go back to you for this question. Let's contemplate the uncontemplatable, which is, what if the Democratic Party loses again to Donald Trump? How are people going to react? What does that reckoning look like? Who are they going to blame? What would be the excuses this time around?
I think we're going to splinter in ways that I don't think that we're going to recover from. If we ultimately lose this race, I think there's going to be multiple factions that are not going to come together again. I mean, we saw the beginnings of it in the very early 2017 race for the DNC chair, right? It was just a sort of an extension of what had happened in 2016. And there's going to be a reckoning. You know, there are absolutely stars of the party that are going to take the reins, and deservedly so, right? But are they going to be cohesive? Probably not. I think that if ultimately we lose this election, we are going to have to stare in the mirror for a very long time and say, what do we want to represent, right? I think we had an opportunity to have a different, set of policies. We had an opportunity to have a new generation of leadership. We had an opportunity to have a different geographic set of leadership. We passed on all of it during the primary. I adore Joe Biden personally, and I think that he is a great candidate, and I do still believe that he will win, especially places like Pennsylvania. So I'm not entirely sure that argument was moot. But if we don't pull this out, I think that is a direct repudiation of the Democrats impeaching Donald Trump. I think it is a direct repudiation of us not being able to save the court from the shenanigans of the Republicans over the last 4 years. And I think it's a direct repudiation of our strategy across America. Now,
That's gonna be interesting,
if we win, we keep talking about, these big grand plans of expanding the court and doing away with the Electoral College. Well, it may be a little too little too late. We're not thinking grand enough. So if the unthinkable happens and we lose, there may not be the Democratic Party in its current form anymore.
Yeah. Well, we could literally talk about this for hours. Marshall and Rachel will get you guys in more a little bit next time. But we have another guest standing by. Thank you all for joining us. It's been so interesting. Just our first check-in. It's now 10:12 here on the East Coast. Still a very long way to go. Want to make that clear to all of the viewers out there.
Very true. Yeah. They're going to be back later. But coming up, Hills correspondent Reed Wilson joins us live now from Arizona. Reed, after Democrats failed to pick up Florida and Democrats failed, do we actually have Reed up, or do we need to? We've got a little thing we're going to play, and then we're going to come.
Then we'll come to Reed.
To talk about Arizona.
Let's play it.
Is there ever a better place to be than a Trump rally,
We need American leadership to bring us together.
These are the real polls. Enthusiasm that we have. I don't think anybody's ever had more enthusiasm.
Everything is on the ballot in 2020. Joe Biden is on the ballot in 2020.
Could you imagine if I lose my whole life? What am I going to do? I'm going to say I lost to the worst candidate in the history of politics.
I'm running as a proud Democrat, but I will govern as an American president.
You're the worst president America has ever had.
Hey,
Come
Joe,
on.
let me just tell you, Joe, I've done more in 47 months. I've done more than you've done in 47 years, Joe.
Mr. Vice President, I'm speaking. I'm speaking. Okay.
Joe Biden and Kamala Harris want to raise taxes. They want to bury our economy under a $2 trillion Green New Deal.
Folks, as my coach used to say in college, it's go time.
All right, now just after 10 p.m., we continue to get some very interesting results trickling in here, Sagar.
Yeah, that's right. Hill correspondent Reed Wilson. He's on the ground in Arizona, and the polls, I believe, just closed over there. So, Reed, do we have Reed? Are we going to throw him up here on the screen?
Oh,
there. Oh, okay.
I see,
all right, I don't see.
There he is.
Okay. All right. Reed Wilson, what's going on down there, Reed?
So the first batch of votes just dropped here in Maricopa County, and former Vice President Joe Biden leads by about 150,000 votes in Maricopa and I just lost my statewide numbers, but Biden leads early in Arizona. Maricopa is important because no Republican has ever won statewide in Arizona. I should let me say that a different way. Only one Republican in modern history has won statewide in Arizona without carrying Maricopa County. It is the huge, vote sink. It's 60% of the vote statewide, and obviously it's been changing pretty rapidly. Kyrsten Sinema won it in 2018 after President Trump carried it by a narrow margin in 2016. So we're still waiting for a lot of votes here. It looks like there are about they're expecting about 900,000 more votes to come in. At the moment, former Vice President Biden is ahead by a little over 200,000 votes. That's a really good margin for him with a lot of votes early. Arizona is a state that votes incredibly early, so he's up by about 10 points, 72% of the vote in. We'll see what happens here, but if I were the Biden team, I'd be happy about Arizona right now.
So that's interesting, Reed. I'm sure you've been checking most of the analysis here. Not kind of a bit contra to what we've seen in Georgia, North Carolina, Florida, all the way over here on the East Coast. Why do you think that is? Are we seeing overrepresentation of the college-educated white population out there in Arizona? Because that's how I kind of expected to see in the state of Georgia.
No, what I think we're seeing is a coalition that has worked, or let's just assume that Biden wins Arizona here. A coalition that appears to be working here that did not work in some other states, and I'm mostly talking about Texas. As we take a look at Texas, Biden is dramatically overperforming Hillary Clinton in the cities and the suburbs. He's winning Austin big, San Antonio big, Dallas big. He's keeping his margins down in Collin and Denton County up north of the Dallas Metroplex. He's winning Houston big. The problem, though, is that he's really underperforming Clinton in the Rio Grande Valley. As you look at that map you've got up right there, take a look at those counties on the very southern tip of Texas, and Biden's margin there is 10 to 15 to maybe 20 points, whereas Hillary Clinton won them 2-1. In one case, she won it about 4-1. I think it was in Starr County. She won about 4-1. So big margins there that haven't come together. In Arizona, the winning path for Democrats is winning those white college-educated voters in the Phoenix area and the suburbs, places like Scottsdale, places like Glendale. I'm out here in Peoria. Biden's not going to win Peoria, I'll tell you that much. After talking to a bunch of voters today. So the winning Dem combination is taking that white college-educated vote and comparing it with the Hispanic vote, who maybe didn't show up in Texas, but boy, the numbers in Pima County down in Tucson are looking a lot better for Dems.
Yeah.
So that's key, Reed. So you're saying basically, look, we saw massive underperformance for Biden among Latinos in Florida. It's a very unique population. We're seeing some underperformance significantly among Latinos in Texas. But essentially what we've seen thus far in Arizona is holding the numbers, doing well there. Do you have a sense of what's different? Is there a better Democratic organization on the ground? And also just give us a little bit of insight into what is in so far in terms of the votes, because, I mean, this is part of the nervousness of tonight is like, are they mail-in ballots? Are they the early votes, which were more Democratic? Is the day of vote going to be highly Republican and claw all that back? What do you know about those dynamics?
Right. So the vast majority of Arizona voters cast their vote by mail, even if they don't actually mail their votes in. I was standing at a precinct today, and everybody was just walking in and dropping off their ballots and walking back out in 3 minutes. So it was real nice and fast and efficient. It is, Arizona votes overwhelmingly by mail. And therefore we've got a significant portion of the vote in. It looks like about 72% of the expected vote in so far. Democrats have never. I was talking to a pollster friend of mine from here just a few minutes ago, and he was making the point that Democrats have never led the early vote in Arizona, despite the fact that this is becoming such a more and more early voting state. So we don't really know what to expect from the rest of the night because we've never seen this so far. Well, at least in the past. But at the moment, I mean, what we're seeing is, Democrats are leading substantially in Pima County, which is down in Tucson. Tell you what, actually, let me look this up real quick. But bottom line, what Democrats need to do to win is they need to run up the score in Pima. They need to win Maricopa County, and then there simply aren't enough votes left in the rurals, which is going to be heavily Republican for the Republicans to come back. But I'm watching Maricopa. I think Maricopa is the most important county in America tonight, and not just because I'm sitting here.
Well, and Reed, break that down for us. Why do you think that? Give us a little bit of the Electoral College map overview. Look, let's assume Florida's gone for Biden. Let's assume Georgia's gone. Let's assume North Carolina is also gone. Let's assume Texas is also gone. What does winning Arizona mean in terms of Joe Biden's possibility of being the next president?
Well, it gives Joe Biden another 11 electoral votes, and if you add that to what I think we still expect Joe Biden to win Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. So and despite your last panel, which a couple of the Dems there looked like they were about to take a long walk off a short
Yeah, they
pier.
look like they're about to puke, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, I still think Joe Biden is the pretty heavy favorite to win this race. He's not going to win it in a blowout. But let's also remember, by the way, 2 years ago, I remember very distinctly Jake Tapper saying on that night, this is not a blowout, and then it turned out to be a blowout. So there are still votes to count. There's still ballots to come in. So let's avoid saying that anybody's won this thing yet or anything like that. There's still a lot of votes to count. And frankly, we haven't even had the West Coast states close yet, so they're
important note of caution there.
Sorry. Right, let's compare Arizona right now to what happened 4 years ago. 4 years ago, Donald Trump 747,000 votes in Maricopa County. Hillary Clinton 702,000. Right now, Biden. Oh, I just lost here's my AP count. Right now, in Maricopa, Biden has surpassed Clinton's vote already at 798. Donald Trump at 656. He's probably going to he'll make up and get to the 747 at least that he's likely to get there. But at the end of the day, he's not going to. He's not. Well, it looks unlikely to me like Donald Trump is going to surpass Joe Biden in Maricopa County. Pima County, Biden is pretty close to what Clinton scored in 2016, and then Biden's doing pretty well in Coconino County too, which is a smaller county. But one that typically votes Democratic up in Flagstaff. Biden has already surpassed Clinton's margin. He leads Trump by about a 2-to-1 edge when Clinton only beat Trump by about a 50% margin there. So Biden's lead at the moment is about twice what Clinton's was 4 years ago.
Wow. So can you say that again, what you said at the beginning of this show, which is that no Republican has won without Maricopa County?
Only one Republican in modern history has won the state of Arizona without carrying Maricopa, and that was a candidate who lost Maricopa County by about 1,000 votes and won statewide by about 14,000.
Okay,
she got it. Superintendent of Public Instruction back in 2014, I think it was. So,
wow. Okay.
Sort of unusual there, but bottom line, Biden needs to win. Biden needs to win Maricopa. Trump needs to win Maricopa. Everybody needs to win Maricopa. This is where it's all.
All right,
Reed Wilson's going to win Maricopa.
Right.
All right,
Yeah,
I'm going to put you on the spot. You said you feel like the Biden team should feel good about Arizona. What kind of a confidence interval do you have here based on what we have in so far?
Oh God, I don't know. I don't want to. Let me go do a deep dive analysis here. I mean, we still got plenty to go. Who knows?
All right, who knows? We'll leave it at that.
Well, let me ask you, where should we look to, right? Where should we look to as the night progresses? I think a lot of the viewers out there are anxious because they're now starting to realize, okay, this thing's going to drag on a little bit. So what do you think?
Yeah, so, I mean, let's watch what happens. I'm a little worried here that we're going to see some votes trickling in very late in the three biggest cities that matter across the upper Northwest: Philadelphia, Milwaukee, and Detroit. Milwaukee officials have already said that the vote is going to be out until about I think they said 6 a.m. Eastern, 5 a.m. Central. Let me tell you, I don't want to stay up that late, but it looks like we're going to have to if Wisconsin is close. If Biden continues overperforming in the suburban areas that he has in the upper Midwest, we know those votes are there, then I think we can all get to bed at a relatively reasonable hour. But if we're waiting for Wayne County to come in Michigan and Milwaukee to come in and Philadelphia to come in, Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, we've seen a ton of votes, the early votes that Dems have locked away there, but we haven't seen like the day of votes. So I'm really waiting for those. These are three states that are not terribly used to picking up not picking up, not terribly used to counting all these absentee ballots. So I sort of wish they'd get a move on,
Yeah, certainly. I really do too.
Reed, thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Reed.
Yes.
Okay, so if you were just joining us, we are live with results of the presidential as well as the key House and the Senate races.
So both President Trump and Joe Biden have made the industrial Midwest cornerstone of their campaigns. Of course, just yesterday, Trump visited Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, while Joe Biden made his way to Pennsylvania. Joining us now to talk about that key geographic region is national correspondent for The Nation, great friend of the show, John Nichols. Great to see you, John.
Good to see you, John.
Honored to be with you both.
Yeah.
All right. What are you seeing so far in your neck of the woods there in Wisconsin, not to mention Michigan, Ohio, too, and Pennsylvania?
Well, first off, I'm seeing a lot closer race than I think a lot of the pundits were proposing even this morning, and it's true in the upper Midwest as well. Because remember, the polling going in showed that Wisconsin looked like a pretty easy win. I think Biden can still win Wisconsin, but it is not going to be that easy. Michigan looks, when I'm looking what's out, what's in, I think Michigan is still doable, quite doable probably for Biden. When you get over to Pennsylvania, I think Pennsylvania is just what we talked about. It's a tight race, and I don't think we know yet exactly where it's going. And frankly, I think that Ohio it looks to be slipping away. So I think Ohio, which early in the evening looked like it was going to be a potential, now you're looking at a pretty substantial Trump lead there. It's going to be very hard to make up. Where I'll tell you is we go right back to where we were 4 years ago, that you have these three states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, that are the possible states, and they are all still possible. But the one variation here is you maybe can lose one of them if you get Arizona, which you were just talking about. So a lot's in play. Here's one thing I will tell you, burrowing deep into Wisconsin, which is considered to be the swingiest of the swing states by a lot of people. In Wisconsin, we're still very early on, but there's some encouraging numbers that don't necessarily show up on the top line, but when you dig in. In Dane County, which is Madison, it's the big liberal vote generator. Hillary Clinton got an astronomical vote in 2016. She got 70% of the vote. Right now, Joe Biden is getting 77% of the vote.
Wow.
He substantially increased his percentage, and it looks like City of Madison is going to, by a reasonable number, exceed its 2016 vote. So the liberal area is delivering a little more. Also, if you go into the Milwaukee suburbs, and this is a big deal, the Milwaukee suburbs are the great kind of vote generator for the Republicans. I'll give you one county, that's Ozaukee County. Ozaukee County in 2016 gave Hillary Clinton only about 36% of the vote. Tonight, Joe Biden's running at about 45% of the vote there. There's still votes out, but he appears to be doing substantially better. When you put those two pieces together, Madison, the big liberal vote generator, giving a better Biden vote, some of these suburban counties apparently giving a little lesser Trump vote, the possibility for winning Wisconsin is clearly there.
So that's really interesting there, John. And I think one of the things I'd like you to break down further is extrapolate this out to both Wisconsin and, Michigan and Pennsylvania. Obviously, only one of these things really has to go right for Trump, and then we can see something different. If you were to put on the contrarian case and say, actually, Trump should be feeling pretty good about the state, where would you point to and elsewhere? And then same thing for Joe Biden.
Yeah, it's very easy to do. Look, if you're going to do the feel good for Trump, it is to look in northern Wisconsin. And northern Wisconsin was a historically pretty populist area. It leaned maybe a little bit Republican, but not overwhelmingly, and a Democrat could do well. Up in northern Wisconsin, you are seeing very, very good numbers for Donald Trump. And so he's holding his own. He's also posting some reasonably good numbers in the southwestern part of the state. And those are areas where Democrats, kind of need to close the gap. And so I can look there and see some numbers that I think are, I apologize, I have a phone ringing here.
All good.
It's a busy night.
When I look over there, I see numbers that that are, Trump's holding his rural base pretty well, maybe even running a little better out there. And I think I've seen some similar things in Michigan, Pennsylvania. We still are waiting to get a little more, getting a better picture. But I tell you right now, this is bottom line, and I think we talked about it about a week ago. This Biden campaign did not go deep on its progressive populist labor message.
Yes.
And these are working class areas. And in fact, one of the things that people don't recognize is that we have a multicultural or multiracial, multi-ethnic working class. And you need to have a universal message that is strong, that can appeal both in urban areas and in rural areas. Biden delivered a very strong message on COVID, and I really respect that, and I think it was important. But they just didn't go as deep as they needed to. And I'll give you one other state that we haven't talked about as much because it does seem to be slipping away. Sherrod Brown begged the Biden campaign to put more energy into Ohio, begged Biden to come to Ohio, begged Biden to deliver that deep dignity of work message, that deep working class message. If Biden had simply said, you know what, we can't win Florida, but we could win Ohio, and we could run our numbers in Michigan and Pennsylvania and Wisconsin, and it put more energy up into the upper Midwest, I think that everybody in the Biden campaign would be breathing a little easier right now.
John, let's talk a little bit more about that because, look, why is Joe Biden the Democratic nominee? It's for one reason, because Democrats were convinced that he could beat Donald Trump. They did not want to end up in this spot right now, listening to you say, I don't know, could go either way, right? Good, 50, baby, he can hold on. Maybe it's possible. And they went all in on suburban, college-educated voters. And guess what? The majority of the country is not college-educated. So even, let's say Joe Biden does pull off this squeaker and is able, Arizona's looking pretty good, maybe holds on in Wisconsin, the industrial Midwestern blue wall states. What should the message be for the Democratic Party? Because, look, I've been saying it here. What does this campaign basically collapse to? It's like, I'll wear a mask and I won't tweet mean stuff. That clearly for a lot of voters, especially the voters that are supposed to be part of the rising Democratic coalition, minorities, young people, that clearly was not enough. Speak to that through the lens of the folks that your friends and neighbors there in Wisconsin.
Yeah, look, here's the bottom line. You don't beat a right-wing populist message with a soft centrist message. You go to a left-wing populist message. And if this sounds like I'm suggesting to you that they genuinely might have been better off if they had nominated Bernie Sanders, yes, that is what I am saying. Mm-hmm. And the fact of the matter is that our media doesn't know how to cover politics. Our media assumes a very simplistic battle between a center-right and a center-left. And Donald Trump blew that up in 2016. The mistake that is still being made by a lot of the political and media elites in this country is to assume that it's a battle between Trump's extremism, right, and the things that I frankly really disdain about Donald Trump, and maybe a back to normalcy thing, some sort of soft centrism. That isn't how you fight the fight. You have to go with something that is much stronger, much bolder, coming from, frankly, what I would identify as a populist left. And that is to really promise people big things and meaningful things. I cannot believe that in the 2020 campaign, that Joe Biden didn't talk about the size of the stimulus that he would do on a daily basis to say, look, they're talking about $1 trillion. Republicans in the Senate, maybe Democrats are talking about $2 trillion in the House. No, it's got to be a $4 trillion stimulus, and it's got to jumpstart the whole of the economy, and it has to be a full-on new deal, not merely a Green New Deal, but an overall New Deal. They didn't deliver that message. That wasn't what they talked about. And if you're going to start to win back working class voters of all races, of all ethnicities, across states, going out into rural regions. You won't win the whole rural region, but you can win some of it, and you can really run those numbers in your cities and in the places where the traditional base is. You just got to have a bolder, stronger message. It has to be take hold of your destiny. The future begins today, not we can go back to having brunch.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're absolutely right. And John, I mean, from the converse, from my side, if Trump had talked about a $4 billion stimulus, he'd probably be winning right now. We wouldn't even be having discussion about Wisconsin, would we?
Brother, we have to remember, I think you may have said, I'm talking trillion.
Yeah, yeah, you're sorry, trillion, yeah. But no, you're right, absolutely.
Every day, I struggle with the T and the B. But the bottom line.
I need more coffee, clearly.
Oh, no, you're doing it. I'm teasing. But the bottom line I have to say is that we have, the Republicans have historically been the deficit hawks. And, they're desperate to get back to it. If Trump loses, the Republican deficit hawks are going to be out there screaming day one. The Democrats, unfortunately, fall into the same trap. If you're going to run against these people, you can't run a deficit hawk message. You have to run a message that we have a huge government with a lot of money. You can always pay for wars overseas. Maybe we can pay for a war on poverty here in America. And it just, I wrote a book about it.
Yes.
And I have been screaming about this for a long time. I really, obviously, like any author, I want my book to be right. I want it to sell a lot of copies, blah, blah, blah. But I would be, because of my ideology, because of where I'm at, I'd be willing to be wrong. It'd be fine by me if I was wrong. But the fact of the matter is that when you look at the practical realities of what we're seeing, even tonight, we are seeing a circumstance where we're sweating a night when I don't think it needed to be sweated.
I agree with you.
Yeah. John, last question to you. Given the state of Wisconsin so well, where should we be watching? What are you going to be looking at? Right now, let's see, the results I have, has it about 40 to 50% of the vote in at this point, so about half still to come in. What are you going to be watching closely?
Milwaukee. It's Milwaukee is it's got a substantial amount in, but it's been a relatively slow count. There are some reports that it may come a bit later than the rest of the state. I'm going to watch really closely. I'm also going to watch southeastern Wisconsin. Remember, that's where Kenosha is, and Kenosha had all these challenges. Trump closed his campaign in Kenosha on Monday night. I'm going to watch down there to see what happens. Finally, I am going to keep an eye on the southwestern part of the state, those rural counties. I always believe that those are places, if the Democrats can win those rural counties, that feeds into, if they've got a strong showing in Dane County and Milwaukee. But again, I can talk about a lot of other stuff. Bottom line is Milwaukee has to deliver. If it does, then this can indeed be a night that Biden wins the state. But if it doesn't, if the numbers aren't there, then you could be seeing a repeat of 2016.
Certainly.
Oh,
well,
my
John,
God.
It's great to talk to you. Didn't think we'd be saying that tonight, but you know what? Yeah, I will say this. It vindicates what all three of us have been saying for a long
You can't run on nothing. It's not enough to just be anti-Trump. And look, he may pull it off, but I think that message should still be received. John, it's so great to have your insights. Thanks for being with us.
Good to see you, John.
Honored to be with both of you. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.
Of course. Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible. Look, I can't believe we're sitting here and it's a square. I'm actually so happy that I was wrong because this is good. It vindicates everything. And look, if Trump wins, like I said, I'm going to throw out a lot of what I thought about this election. The Democrats, look, we've had Jennifer Holdsworth on this show for what, a year and a half? I never heard her talk that way one time. About impeachment? I mean, for her to be talking about impeachment that way, and it's true. It would absolutely be correct in the case that could be prosecuted. I will say it's not right. We shouldn't be dancing on anybody's grave yet. I want to update everybody on the state of Arizona, which is still looking very good for Joe Biden. So that county that Reed referenced, Maricopa County, is currently reporting in with 73 to 87% of their precincts in. I don't have an exact number for you, at 54% for Biden and 44% for Trump. So you can see there that regardless of what that election day vote in, he needs to win a significant amount. So Henry Olsen, who is somebody who I really respect, says that he believes that Trump needs to win 60% of the day of vote in Arizona in order to win that state, because there was about 78% turnout of registered voters. There's about 1 million votes left in the count there. 60%, very tall order. Not out of the question, though, because Republicans overwhelmingly voted in person. So if I'm the Biden campaign, that is the sliver of hope for at least right now in this moment that I am feeling, which is the state of Arizona. That being said, could be a squeaker. I mean, it really could be. And I generally think that is where things are headed. Again, look, if Biden does win Arizona, it's pretty much game over for Trump. I don't really think he has a path to 270 without it. But I actually was just looking at, if we want to really throw and scare everybody else, look, check this out. If Trump were to win Pennsylvania and Michigan, Wisconsin, and then Biden wins Arizona, 269,
oh my God.
269 to the House of Representatives. Honestly, it's 2020. Let's make it happen, folks. We need another Rutherford B. Hayes 1876 election. I mean, isn't that what we all just needed in our lives?
Yeah, that would be the most 2020 possible outcome, honestly. And look, I mean, I saw a tweet from Holly Otterbein, reporter at Politico. Yes. There are a lot of mail-in ballots in Philadelphia that they're not going to count tonight.
Yes,
so
it's not going to be for a while until
we are very unlikely to know tonight, I think is what it's looking like at this point, who the next president of the United States is. We may have more of a sense of what direction things are heading in, but this is the nightmare scenario. I mean, this is what did you and I both say? We've like one way or the other. Please make it clear. Because the country is so on edge, and then you get the lawyers out, and the ballots are being challenged, and that's exactly what we are headed towards. But I think Michael Starr Hopkins and Jen Holdsworth on that panel, it was so interesting to hear their analysis in the fact. And for those of you who watch Rising, you know this, but if you haven't seen a lot of Jen on the show before, she was a Pete Buttigieg person. Right. And, Pete, when you first signed up with Pete, you got kind of a different candidate than what he evolved to ultimately was like this, let me be a centrist guy. Right. He was originally like Medicare for all. He tried to run in the progressive lane and then quickly shifted. But it was fascinating to hear her talk about the repudiation of the entire Democratic strategy. And I want to say again, even if Biden pulls this thing off, and I think it looks right now, I'd probably give him a little bit of an edge to still pull this thing off. You have such massive failures on the part of Donald Trump in handling coronavirus, in his whole approach to it, in lack of message. He wasn't effective at anything this entire year. The fact that you have let it be close is such a disaster and such an incredible repudiation of this stupid ass way that they've been doing politics for decades now, where they think if you just promise people the least possible, have this milquetoast, nothing burger type of language, that's going to be enough for voters. And for certain group, suburban, white, college-educated voters, they're excited. They're coming out for Joe. Those numbers are turning out. But guess what? Majority of the country does not have a college education. You better deliver for them too.
Let me read you this, Crystal. This is something I did not ever think I would say on the show. Starr County, Texas, which is right in the Rio Grande Valley, Nuevo Laredo, and all around there. This is one of the poorest counties in the nation, 95% Hispanic. Joe Biden only won it by 52% of the vote. Trump won 47% of the vote in a 95% Hispanic county. In Starr County, Texas. I've been to Starr County. I can tell you that I would never expect that I would be saying that Donald J. Trump would win even I didn't think he would win 47% of the vote in that county. It's one of the poorest counties in the whole country, and he just won there. I mean, this is the ultimate indictment of the Biden campaign.
100%.
Even if they squeeze this thing out,
100%.
you can't take 47% of the vote away from Donald J. Trump in Starr County, Texas. I know I'm shocked, but this is a historic county in our state. I mean, it's one that actually flipped in the LBJ election in the 1940s and the United States Senate race.
Sure, that was totally straightforward. No monkey business going on there.
There was no monkey business. Actually, there was a lot. There were literal dons involved. I can just tell you that. What's crazy to me is to see the realignment has accelerated in ways I did not think was going to happen.
And the pollsters didn't pick up.
And the pollsters didn't pick it up. And I will tell you, I think we put too much stock into them. Already, I can tell you I'm going to be so dramatically more skeptical of what we read. And I'm going to trust a little bit more of our instincts because I thought, and I kept verifying some of the things that we were thinking in public polling. But, Corona, this, and Trump is not saying that. But I still am starting to believe that even just the rhetoric alone, is enough in the absence of nothing. And when the absence of nothing from Biden is there, and the absence and the globalism and the rooted picture of him, that is just not enough for so many voters across America. And I got to say, I'm actually a little bit heartened by it.
I mean, it's ironic because I feel the same way. Like, you can't run on nothing. You can't stay home. You can't not even try. I mean, the Biden, and again, we don't want to dance on the grave here. Like, Biden may well win. He's still very much in position to be able to pull this thing off. Yeah. But Democrats have spent 4 years trying to avoid exactly this situation right now that they are facing. And their whole approach has been an utter disaster, from impeachment, from deciding to go after the moderate Republican, the John Kasich vote again, to putting Kamala Harris on the ticket, thinking that was going to be enough to drive out minority and young voters. Those 3 pieces have all failed.
Yeah.
I think we have Kyle Kondik ready to join us.
Do we have Kyle Kondik in there? Oh, okay.
Oh, right, we got it. Okay, coming up, let me read the tease that's in here. Managing editor of Sabotage Crystal Ball, Kyle Kondik, is going to rejoin us. Going to give us more analysis on how tonight is shaping up just after this.
Former Vice President Joe Biden has 2 real paths to the electoral votes he needs to win the White House. Think of it as the northern path and the southern path. Let's talk about the northern path first. And it runs through states like Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania, the 3 blue wall states that President Trump won in 2016. Add in Ohio and Iowa, 2 states that Barack Obama won twice, but President Trump won in 2016. And you get up to the 70 electoral votes that would add enough to Biden's total to win the White House in November. As he looks south, he can look at states like North Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Texas, and Arizona. Those are states that are changing rapidly. People are moving in from other parts of the country in search of good jobs and cheap housing. A generation of younger Hispanic and African American voters are moving into the electorate, and that's made all of these states a lot more competitive for Democrats in recent years. President Trump won 306 electoral votes in 2016, and this year he's mostly playing defense in those states. He's likely already ceded a state like Michigan, which is a pretty traditionally Democratic state, but he is looking at some more traditionally Democratic states where he might make some inroads. States like Minnesota, New Hampshire, and Nevada. So President Trump has the opportunity to add those 3 states to his total. Will it be enough for him to hold off Joe Biden's surge in the upper Midwest and in the rest of the Sun Belt? That we just don't know yet.
What a night it has been so far, and it is far from over. We are back with managing editor of Sabotage Crystal Ball, Kyle Kondik. Tons of new results, Kyle, have poured in since the last time we spoke with you. First, tell us about what you're seeing in Arizona and how that could shift the overall electoral path for Joe Biden.
I mean, Arizona, I think, looks pretty decent for him right now. For Biden right now, he is at he's up by about 9 points. Mark Kelly's up by about 9 points too in the U.S. Senate race. There's probably about 75% or so of the vote in now. Election day is probably going to skew Republican. We got to remember that going to sound like a broken record on this, but that one kind of voting method is going to look a lot different than another. But I think Arizona probably looks decent for Biden at this point. Arizona is really important because if, for instance, say Wisconsin goes to Trump, but maybe Biden's able to win Michigan and Pennsylvania, Arizona could get Biden to 270 in that scenario. Also, there's a scenario in which Biden wins Arizona, Biden wins Wisconsin, Biden wins Michigan, and Biden wins Nebraska's 2nd congressional district. Add that to the Clinton 2016 states, and that gets him exactly to 270.
That's interesting, Kyle. So let's talk a little bit more about that, which is that on top of the numbers that we're seeing in Arizona, I want you to break this down. Our correspondent, Reed Wilson, talked about Maricopa County. Are there enough votes left to come in to give Trump Maricopa? Because as I understand it, that would basically be that game over for Trump.
It doesn't sound like there was that much cast on Election Day. I haven't seen the hard numbers on that. I'm trying to look into it. But also, you'd have to expect Trump to win like all the votes, or a very significant amount of them to make up for that deficit. So again, there's a reason why. I don't think any of the networks have called Arizona, so there's a reason why that's been called. But I was kind of surprised at the size of the margin. But again, and I think the total number of votes is something like 2.3 or 2.4 million. There were only 2.6 million votes cast in 2016. Now we've also seen the turnout's been a lot higher across the country.
Yeah, that's very interesting.
Kyle, how are you reading the tea leaves in the industrial Midwest right now?
The results in all of these states are very much skewed. You're getting in Michigan, you're getting a lot of the Election Day vote, which I think is going to skew Republican. Pennsylvania is all over the map. Wisconsin is that way too, I think. So I find it hard to sort of assess these results because it's just kind of a melange of different voting methods in different places. I will say this.
Do you think it is? Let me just to jump in there. Something we've talked about, the scenario that Hawkfish, the Bloomberg data firm, floated was you could have this kind of red mirage in those industrial Midwestern states where then as the mail-in ballot is counted, it shifts towards Joe Biden. Do you think that could be part of what we're seeing right now?
Yeah, it certainly could be. And like if you look at a state like Virginia, for instance, which I know is not decisive, but I think Trump is still leading in Virginia, but they haven't counted a lot of the early votes, which is going to skew very Democratic. And some of the complete results that we do have in like Loudoun and Prince William counties look really good for Biden, even better than Clinton in 2016 when she won the state handily. And there's hardly anything from Richmond, I don't think, either. So, Virginia should be fine for Biden. But it's coming down to Arizona, Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin. Although I also think North Carolina is not necessarily a done deal yet, although it seems like Trump is favored there.
So let's talk about that. Why do you say that on North Carolina? Where would some areas need to turn out? Because I'd seen almost a general consensus that, that's it. It's good for Trump.
Well, I saw that apparently there was a reporting error in one of the counties that flipped something like tens of thousands of votes to to Biden. Now that's not enough to flip the state, but it's another one that I don't think has necessarily been called yet. But I do think the president's probably favored there and in Georgia based on what I can see.
Let's talk a little bit about the Senate because it's looking pretty tough for Democrats right now to take the Senate. They'd been somewhat favored to take the Senate this time around. Sketch on a scenario where we could potentially have a Joe Biden presidency and Mitch McConnell hanging in there as Senate Majority Leader.
Yeah.
Well, certainly if Cal Cunningham doesn't come through in North Carolina, that's a big problem. The Iowa results are starting to come in. Those are very heavily skewed Democratic in the early vote there, so I don't necessarily know if that tells us anything. Doesn't seem like there's a whole lot in from Maine, although Susan Collins is running markedly ahead of Donald Trump in Maine, which she needs to do. I think because if in fact Cunningham loses, that blows a big hole in the Democrats' Senate chances.
Yeah, I can't even overstate there. One thing, Kyle, Lindsey Graham, the AP's already called it for him. It's kind of amazing that the two candidates, Jamie Harrison and Amy McGrath, who collectively raised something like $200 million, have already gone down. It's disgusting. It's only 10:53 here on the East Coast.
Yeah, that's right. The Harrison Graham race seemed like it was much closer than I think looks like it's going to end up being. And it also seems like Democrats are underperforming in the House. I think they would keep the House majority as best I can tell, but I think a lot of us thought that they would make gains, and they very well may not. So that's also something to watch too. But bottom line is we're going to be waiting on the kind of the industrial north, and the signals I think are very mixed there. We have a lot in from Ohio, and what it basically shows is Biden doing really well in the big urban counties, but not making up the kind of ground that he needed to make up in Ohio. I don't think to flip that state. If you translate that to Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, maybe that's enough for Biden to win those states, given that they were much closer than Ohio was in 2016. But I don't know if we have a great read on who the next president's going to be.
Yeah, I mean, but I think we can say so far that we've had some pretty significant polling misses already in the states that we do have a little bit of a clear picture in. I mean, what does that reckoning look like? And do we have a sense of where they were off and how they missed these dynamics?
I think it's too soon to tell. And look, I mean, the polling in states like North Carolina and Florida and Georgia in aggregate were pretty close at the end. Although there were some pollsters that showed Biden leading by more in those places. But I think that there were a lot of people skeptical of the polls coming into 2020, and in some ways, it seems like that might be justified, but that might be a little too soon to say. You also are seeing kind of a sometimes talk about kind of a uniform swing in American politics. Lots of different cross currents. Again, the kind of affluent, highly educated areas, particularly in the North, are doing well for Biden. We're seeing some real underperformance with the Hispanic vote for Clinton. And so it's just a different kind of election. It's just seeing things going lots of different ways.
Yeah, it certainly is. Kyle, thank you so much for your analysis, man, tonight. It's been just so helpful for everybody. And I guess the last question is we're generally expecting, we kind of think this is probably going to go on and may not know the results tonight. What do you think about that?
I mean, I think that sounds right. I mean, we were sort of anticipating that Pennsylvania would